Where were you when the world stopped turning?
For a previous generation, the world stopped turning once before. On a bright November day in 1963, when John Kennedy was shot by a lone gunman in Dallas. Or maybe not. For nearly 40 years, Kennedy's assassination has been the subject of scores of theories. Were the Russians involved? The mafia? Who was behind the grassy knoll?
Well, the comparison with the Kennedy assassination illustrates the difference between now and then. In the days of the Kennedy assassination, it took 2 years, maybe 3 years, before the skeptics of the official version got underway, got magazines to publish articles, got editors to publish books. In the internet age, 911, the conspiracy theories began appearing the same day. And I began receiving them on my little computer the next day.
Today, if you type 9/11 conspiracy into your computer, you'll find more than 68,000 documents. They range from the wild and wacky to serious academic analyses. What they have in common with each other and other conspiracy theories, be they the Kennedy assassination, Diana's car crash, or Martin Luther King's death in Memphis, is that they try to give us neat answers to the unanswered and sometimes unanswerable questions that surround such tragedies.
When people see some horrible event that's very dramatic and they're shocked, they often try and find some greater meaning in it, and they want to reject the idea that it's random, that it was not stoppable. They want to see some pattern. And the brain wants to categorize things. And so when somebody comes along and says, there's no mystery here, A, B, C, D, E, connect the dots, you can see what really happened, people think, well, that's a very persuasive idea, and it makes me understand the event and make me feel better about there being some control in the world.
There is always an official version, and there's usually a very good reason to be skeptical of it. So the person who will say, well, the emperor has no clothes, we should be grateful to such people, but they have a responsibility in their turn to set a high standard of the pursuit of evidence and to show some respect for the three concepts of motive, method, and opportunity in making allegations of official collusion.
Thierry Meyssan's theory that it was Americans and not Al-Qaeda who attacked the United States last year does not survive even the most elementary tests of motive, method, and opportunity. But conspiracy theorists like Thierry thrive in the holes that inevitably occur in the official version of major tragedies. And with September the 11th, as with Kennedy, there are real holes, even for those who don't believe Thierry's version of events. Both at the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, the hijacked planes exploded on impact, reaching temperatures in excess of 1,300 degrees centigrade. Flesh, bone, steel and aluminium were mostly evaporated or incinerated. Yet a few days later, the FBI announced that the passport of an unnamed hijacker survived the inferno and was subsequently found close to ground zero.
Well, I think one is led to suspect that perhaps that was not part of the original debris. I'm very sceptical about that claim.
Hang on a second, Alex. You're the editor of Jane's Intelligence. You are alleging that someone planted a crucial piece of evidence at a crime site.
It's always possible. It's happened in the past. I would say it's highly unlikely that that sort of identifiable document would have conveniently been found in the location that it was. Certainly, I think there are elements of the story which do not stand up to serious scrutiny.
The discovery of the passport was trumpeted at the time by FBI Assistant Director Barry Morn. But now the FBI says the discovery of the passport is just a rumor, which may be a fact. In other words, now they won't tell us if it was really found or not. And there's one more potentially disturbing piece in this incomplete jigsaw. There was, of course, a fourth hijacked plane that day. Flight UA-93, carrying 44 people from Newark to San Francisco, crashed in Pennsylvania before it could reach its supposed target in Washington. The official version is that a number of heroic passengers stormed the hijacked cockpit and sacrificed their lives to prevent an even worse catastrophe.
Certainly the official version that the passengers attempted to take control of the plane back from the hijackers, that the pilots had probably been killed by that point, and that they lost control and the plane was subsequently as it crash landed and destroyed. I think there are important questions to be raised there. One is that I think there is some evidence that there were people on board who had sufficient experience to regain control. And indeed, I think there is some evidence they may have done so.
If the plane was perhaps being flown by the passengers rather than the hijackers when it crashed, what really happened in its last moments? When the plane crashed, most of its fuselage, passengers and crew were reduced to tiny fragments around this site in what used to be a forgotten corner of Pennsylvania. Strangely, a single one-ton piece of engine was found intact more than a mile away, and other remains more than 2 miles away. So how did they come to rest so far from the remainder of the plane? Could it perhaps have been destroyed while still in the air?
The question which arises is whether, in view of the previous 3 incidents, whether the United States Air Force shot down Flight 93. Now, one can understand why that decision may have been taken. I mean, if this plane was genuinely being aimed at Congress or the White House, then the question would have to be asked. Was it appropriate to shoot it down? Many people, I think, would have said yes, but not if control had already been regained. And I think that that is the question which could only be settled, and I think it should be settled, by a proper independent investigation looking at issues such as the flight recorder. Certainly I think the issue of the black box and why it's not been released, I think that raises an important question.
The FBI has UA-93's black box flight recorder and says it has played the entire contents to the relatives in private. So private that the families were even forbidden to take notes. But why won't the FBI release the full transcript to independent experts, better equipped to judge what really happened in those crucial final moments? The FBI says it's because there may one day be a criminal trial, but for the moment, this lack of openness leaves them vulnerable to accusations of cover-up. In the meantime, we do know that Air Force jets were scrambled that morning with orders to shoot down rogue airliners, and that at least one F-16 was less than 10 minutes flying time from UA-93. In the absence of official candor, all we have is speculation and a sense of loss.
He said, I know we're not going to make it out of here. And so she said, I will stay on the line, and she heard him put the phone down, and that's when she heard him say, the last thing she heard him say, and that was, are you guys ready? Let's roll. And she heard some commotion after that, and the line went dead soon thereafter.
I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran.
It all began on a balmy September day a year ago, when 3,055 souls perished in the worst single act of terror anywhere, anytime. The tragedy overwhelmed and shocked us on this day that war came to America's shores.
Where were you when the world stopped turning?
Yet for reasons understandable or otherwise, the full story is still to emerge. And it's in the gaps and crevices between truth that half-truths and lies emerge, leading in turn to allegations of conspiracy and cover-up. In a democracy, these too have a value insofar as they question the received, the official version. Yet the conspiracy theorists also have a responsibility, a duty to shine a light towards truth, not to obscure it. And in our search for truth, the Meyssan conspiracy should anger us, not because it's a conspiracy theory, simply because it's a poor one, which is all too easily disproved.
Did you lay down at night, think of tomorrow, go out?
4's one-year on-season continues with the definitive account of the events of September the 11th, made mostly from amateur video and still photographs, and with the recollections of Mayor Giuliani. In Memoriam, New York City is tomorrow at 9 o'clock.